Mm-hmm.
Hello.
How's it going?
Everybody in the back row. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Hi.
My name is Shannon.
Hi, Shannon.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning, this is Sistrunk.
I know, right? I'm one of those. I'm one of those girls that was taught and beaten in school that if you get up in front of a room of people to speak, you have to dress nicely. That's what I get for going and getting both my degrees in communication. And so it's like I have a paranoia. If I don't dress nicely, then I'll get a bad grade. So it's worse than it's almost as bad as saying where my schools were. So that's the whole dress nicely thing. It's not because I'm worried about not fitting in or I think I won't. I can't do it. So it's a physical impossibility. So for those of you who did see that, I was joking then. I said somebody saw it, said one of 63 slides and ran out. There's slides on the back end that don't apply necessarily or that I don't use. So that's not necessarily. I'm not going to subject you to all of that. The topic is, say it to my face, effects of communication degradation. Anybody have any idea what any of that might mean? Anybody? Some people are shaking their heads. Anybody that hadn't already talked to me or heard me before know what that might mean? Because I want my husband shaking his head.
Because we spend all our time texting or IMing that we're losing our skills.
Okay. What skills?
Actual communication skills.
What do you mean by actual communication skills?
Face-to-face communication, or even over the telephone,
Okay.
or video conference.
Okay. That is. It has. And what do you think that might have to do with InfoSec though?
You have to convey ideas and concepts and get mutual agreement.
That, but what does that have to do with information security?
It's hard to social engineer somebody if you can't communicate well.
Or it's easier for somebody that can communicate well. So,
Bars lower.
okay? So we're going to look a little bit into it. And I will tell you now, I'm a little disappointed in my presentation. I wanted to put a lot less of some things and a lot more of other things in it. And excuses are like, everyone has one, everyone stinks. So I have a lot of reasons why there's some stuff in here that, and some stuff isn't in here that I wanted to put in there. But I will tell you that this is just the beginning of some research that I'm going to be doing that is going to go a lot farther. We're going to be doing studies, and it's kind of like doctoral work almost into the effects of this and into the effects of communication degradation, not only on what it does for and what it has to do with information security, but what it's also doing in my own field and what it's doing just in general to other generations, our generations, our children, and what it could do in the future. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about, I will touch briefly on that. And some of that is going to start a series on, I know you all know, or most of you probably know Chris Hadnagy, or if you heard of socialengineering.org, or Human Hacker, or whatever. But the series is going to start on there. So, okay. There are 7. Big 7. My thesis in college, in graduate school, was all about arguing that there was 8. I wanted to add one more. But that's not what this is about. There are joy, sadness, or distress, anger, fear, disgust, contempt, and surprise. I'm telling you this because it's part of what you need to know. And I'm going to give you a little quiz. These are 7 universally recognized facial expressions. I've had people argue with me up and down, drunk and sober, that there's no possible way that they could be universally recognized. There are people far smarter than I that have done the research over years and years and years and years and years and years. You get it. I don't don't even know if the research could be duplicated today. I'm not sure that there's a tribe that exists anymore like the ones that they found back then that hasn't been exposed to some sort of media like they found then. The fact is that when someone experiences true joy, true sadness or distress, true anger, true fear, disgust, contempt, or surprise, they show these same facial expressions in a range. And that range has been quantified, recorded, and marked and computer simulated all the way down to something called the facial action coding system, done by Paul Ekman. And then it's been quantified all the way down more into micro expressions that you've probably heard of. My favorite show, all good shows that are too smart for normal people, get canceled, lie to me. Loved it, sorry. Is based on Paul Ekman's research, and that's what this was about. Facial action coding system. So I want you guys to guess. Not right now, I'm telling you the answers at the end. So if you have something that you can write on, you can write a J or a S or a D or a C, or just try to remember for later. Okay? What do you think these facial expressions mean? And I'm throwing you easy ones. So on the facial action coding system, these would score between the top two. But I'm telling you, most people think that they are great at interpreting facial expressions. They think that they can spot a liar. They think that they know what somebody else is thinking. And our generation is much better at it than the one below us and then our children. Okay? I'll not give you long. They should be easy. And you wouldn't see them very long. And that's all I'm going to subject you to for now. Okay, so what is communication degradation? So first you have to define communication. There's whole volumes, there's whole classes that argue to define communication. So I just, dictionary. Easy. The act and process of communicating, fact of being communicated, which I didn't like that one, but the imparting or exchanging of thoughts, opinions, or information by speech, writing, or signs. That means talk to you, could make gestures at you, could write something to you, or something that's imparted, exchanged, or transmitted. Okay? That makes sense? It's pretty basic level. Basically, you get a message from me, whether I intended to send it or not, but you received some sort of message, then we communicate it. Does that make sense? What is degradation? It came from the word degrade, reduced in rank or position or reputation. There's your example sentence. Or reduced in quality or value, debased or vulgarized. So, communication degradation. Taking communication and reducing its rank, basically beating communication to death. The actual purpose or the actual intended purposes of communication and eroding it away into something else. Does that make sense? When something's vandalized, it doesn't look the same anymore. That's what's happening. And I know it says from CNN's Jack Cafferty. It has other sources. This is just what you get for now. In 2010, they called it the year we stopped talking to each other, because that was the year when we started seeing the highest use of Twitter, Facebook, all social media just bloomed and boomed. Text messaging boomed, use boomed. Basically, we got this even more. I had a joke and I couldn't find a picture last night to save my life, and it just frustrated me to no end. But it said, why are we fearing the zombie apocalypse when it's already here? It's a group of teenagers walking together, and they're all like this. No one's talking to each other. I was at a hair appointment the other day, and 2 kids were there. No one's talking to each other. They were texting each other. The girl got mad at whatever he texted and walked away. The boy didn't seem to understand why she was mad. He just slumped in the chair and texted someone else. They didn't look at each other or talk to each other. I wanted to go, do you understand why you can't do communication this way? The main reason that people use the internet right now is to communicate with other people. But they completely bypass people. So we want to talk to people, but we just don't want to have to deal with people. Importance of communication. Communicate, and you can, communication forms the foundation of our society. If you can think of something else that does, let me know. Is there anybody? We can't procreate without communication. You can't trade goods without communication. You can't do anything without communicating to each other in some way. There is no social order, no like you see, there's no preservation of history without communication. I know a lot of times liberal arts gets a bad rap. You like to joke about it. My husband, I live with the SCADA expert, the engineer back here. He loves to go, and this person says this, and this person says this, and the liberal arts person says, anybody know? Would you like? Thank you, fries with that. So, that's always the joke. It's okay to laugh. Communication models. So they get much more complex. I'm going to show you just 3. I want you to take a little look. A lot of times we think communication is just this. I tell you, hi, my name is Shannon. Your name is?
My name's Sina.
Hi, Sina. But what goes into that is my communication skills, my attitude, my knowledge, the social system we live around, and I can't even read that, I'm sorry. Culture. I don't have glasses either. And then, that's all I get. That's it. The rest of this is it leaving me. The message leaves. Just like you guys, you write code, right? Some of you write code, some of you build stuff. Once you've done that, it's out of your hands. That's your baby. It's gone. Then it goes to maybe a hacker or a pen tester or someone else who is going to take it and break it down. Now some people, they take the message and they will, I have to go here because I can't read. They will take the context of it. They will take the elements of it, the structure of it, their own codes. That's the message. That's just the message. Then they take it through a channel. How they heard it, how they saw it. Did they touch it? Was it text? Did they taste it? Did they feel it? And now there's so much more into that too. Like I said, my grad school model looks like some sort of diagram of a pen blew up. Then the receiver tries to decode the message. Once the encoding happens, then they're going to start to decode it. And this is just a simple decoding. Again, communication, attitude, knowledge, social system, structure. You have no control over those factors of theirs. So it's like a pen tester or a hacker, a white hat or a black hat. You don't know who gets your information. You don't know who gets your code. You don't know who gets what. They're gonna take it, and they may beat it to death. They may have a bad day, and they may want to maliciously find every single thing they can wrong with it, call you and tell you that you're an idiot for building it, and release it into who knows what before you have a chance to fix it. Now, you didn't intend on anything bad happening when you built it, but they didn't know that. The population didn't know that. I may not intend on you getting a certain message when I say the words that come out of my mouth, but I don't know what's in your life, and I can't control how you receive the message. I told a friend the other day, he said, someone got mad at me because I kept doing this during a conversation, stroking his beard. I said, for all you know, their dad did that every time she got slapped around. And he stopped. He said, ever thought about that? He said, it's not my fault. I said, no, it's not her fault either. It just is what it is. We have to take it and say, I have responsibility for my words and do the best I can next time with my communication. Here's another one. You get an idea. You try to, and you have noise. There's all that stuff I showed you. You're trying to encode it to send it. The message gets transmitted. There's external noise everywhere while you're trying to listen to the message, like your friend talking to you, or the fact that you're thinking about what you're going to do tonight, or that, what are they doing out there? You know, I have ADD. It's awful. I do that. Or I'm thinking about, gosh, you know, his body language looks like he doesn't like this, or two people have done that, or this is happening, and this is happening, and I shut that down while I'm trying to speak. There's all kinds of things going on while we're trying to listen to messages. Then we try, and then there's internal and semantic noise. That's you talking to yourselves. What the sender talking to themselves too. And then you try to decode a message. It's just not, we think communication is simple. That's the problem. That's what I'm trying to get across to you real quick. It's not. It's complicated, and annoyingly complicated. And then here's just a really easy one. I thought you guys might understand too. If something happens in the middle, if your transmitter's working fine, but the receiver has something wrong with it, that's really not your fault, but your message still isn't going to get there, right? Or if something happens in the middle, if somebody goes and runs and does something in the middle, or goes and runs back, or whatever. Once the message is sent, it's sent. That's the point. And the problem is that in our culture, does anybody know how much of that message is actually verbal? No.
But now it just goes to 10%.
How much? 10 or less is verbal. You count paralinguistics, which is goes all the way down to 5 to 7 is verbal. The rest of the message is nonverbal. Now think about that when you're reading an email, text, God forbid, message boards, Twitter, and think about the effect of that. When people remove trying, or some people, that's their primary form of communication. Face to screen. Americans aged 18 to 29 send and receive nearly 88, and this was a couple years ago, 88 text messages a day compared to 17 phone calls. Now, I will guarantee, sorry, my mouth is getting dry. I'll guarantee you that has between the time that the other two studies were done, it jumped hugely. I will guarantee that 88 text messages per day is probably doubled, and that 17 phone calls per day is probably been cut in half. The number changes as we get older with the number changes as we get older with the frequency of all communication declining. That means we just don't talk to anyone as we get older. That's not like I just go, grandma goes and just talks on the phone. No. Isolation, pretty much. But even the 65 and over, daily text messages were still edging 4 to 3. And then 32% of all respondents said they'd rather communicate by text than phone, even with people they knew very well. You know what? I'd love to stand here and say, because of what I do, I'd rather call people on the phone or talk to them. But I will say this, I'd rather talk to them face to face. I don't like phone calls. I don't really like text messages. I'd rather just talk to you. That's why tomorrow, or this week, next week when I'm doing DEF CON, I'm doing social engineering capture the flag. The whole thing is the learning experience for me, because telephone just manipulating on the telephone, I am a fan of when a scammer calls, because I will troll them for as long as I can on a phone. But what I hate, I've never really tried telephone manipulation since I've been over 18. I used to have a relationship with a telephone company in my younger youth, where I would, or I knew somebody who did in their younger youth, they were very good at, somehow they would call from one house they were staying at and convince them not to call their own home phone, that they needed to charge every long distance call they made to this other number, but not call that number to verify, and then they could call the third party phone number. And this went on for many years. I have no idea how. It got to the point to where this person didn't even have a third party to call. It was me, if you don't know. Would lay in bed at night and I just think of things to come up with, like Emmy-worthy scenes, you know, and to call the phone company with and say, you know, this has happened and I have to do this, and it was amazing. It really was. I'd like to think that I've saved people and helped the system as a whole, honestly. It's been a benefit, I'm sure, because now they don't allow that and people can abuse that system, so it's for the greater good. And I've grown up to be the responsible person I am today. And this is what I want to get into, and my study will get into at some point. But this is what I see as the biggest problem when I talk about cracking that foundation that we have. Psychologists are seeing, and so are communication theorists, that the impact of just texting and talking through text-based communication, kids are the major users of this technology. Their interpersonal skills suck. I know that's not what it says up there, but that's the thing. Try to interview or talk face-to-face with a teenager right now. Even just not teenagers, but let's go a generation under the younger people, let's say, I'm not picking, but 20-year-olds, 19, 18. It's difficult unless they have worked to hone those skills or done some sort of, so. Bye. No one likes my phone. I promise it will apply to y'all. You just have to sit through the part where you have to learn something first. MIT psychologists are on this too. looking into the effects on interpersonal development. They believe that having a conversation with another, and this is what I'm really gonna get into, and I talked to at another conference, is called mirroring. If they don't see you do it, then how do they learn to do it? They don't. It's just like the cave. Remember that? Anybody remember that whole study? Believe it or not, that actually is true. And it's not just, they're not seeing y'all do it or their parents not do it. They're not seeing anybody in society mirror these effects. It's getting to that point. So, as it's getting to that point, we're gonna see that particular block of development totally erode.
Excuse me, what is the case study you're talking about?
Hmm?
What is this case study you're talking about?
The cave was, forgive me for the person's name. Plato, thank you.
Oh,
I almost said Aristotle. That's not right.
No, I know. It's okay.
Okay. You know, where they put him in the cave.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so the thing is that if let's say you may know sadness or empathy, we have those, unless you're born with those being blocked, or you have some sort of psychological problem. But you don't know how to use them properly or put them into context. You learn those through mirroring in society, mirroring from your parents. Even abused children can grow up and learn, they generally know that that's not normal, because they don't see every kid on the street being abused. They don't see every child in their school being abused. They don't watch on TV people that are being abused. They know that there's something wrong with that. And that's a personal thing. That's why I bring that up. I know that. And so, the problem here is that this seems like the new norm. They're seeing reduced empathy, all kinds of things. So your linked to InfoSec, your growing presence in the information world, it's just going to make information more prevalent out there, more useful in a virtual for us to attack. I mean, think about it. How many of us had cruddy junior highs or cruddy high school years and that no one knows about? I know that no one really knows me or knows anything about me from junior high and high school. And it'd be hard for them to find that information unless I've linked up with them since then, because it wasn't pleasant. I was able to start over. Think about kids, let's say my daughter even, she's 10, growing up in this world of Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything's documented on the internet forever. Where's their start over? Where's their do-over?
So she should use Meetings. You should use her.
But how many kids are doing that? None, almost none. And most people are encouraging them to be more social, more online, more out there. And the less adept your people are, because you're hiring, you know, your people. These are your people that you're going to be hiring to work customer service, to work secretarial positions, to work at positions that I would target as a social engineer. The less adept they are at face-to-face communication, the more susceptible they are a social engineer who will exploit that vulnerability. And you know what they're wanting and they need, and the need that, and it sounds sick almost when I say it like this, but a need that I'll exploit is that they're really lonely and hungry for someone who will sit and personally talk to them, put their hand on them when they talk to them and touch them. And it may sound to you right now like that's lame and that's BS, but go with me sometime. Let's go. Let's try it. In 10 minutes, I can get somebody to start talking about where they grew up, what they do at work, on and on and on and on and on. We're storytellers and we love to tell everybody our stories. And we don't have anyone to tell anymore. Not really. really, not close, not interpersonally, not intimately. It's almost a sad feeling because you walk away and they're glad that they met you. You're so nice, she's so sweet, she's so friendly. Or men even. And women, I've had women get mad at this part, and you can, and that's okay, I understand. But women social engineers will exploit this, I will. The fact that a lot of men get most of the attention that they get online from women. So a lean in close, a touch on the shoulder, that'll get me close enough if I have to plant a USB drive or slip it in for a moment, or if I have to just slide one on your desk. At a bar, to get you to buy me a drinks and get you talking and talking and talking. And you know what? I don't have to be that pretty. I'm not. I don't even have to wear low-cut shoes and stilettos. It's the touch. It's the scent. It's the proxemics that I'll run through quickly in a second. You know, they can talk about social engineering toolkits and spoofing and phishing and everything else. I'm not that kind of social engineer. But my methods, they work just as well. If you need information on one target or a couple of targets, or I need to get in somewhere, or I need to get information. And the thing is, your company, your people that work for you, they need to know that and they need to understand that. They need to understand it's okay to say, you know what, I'm uncomfortable, or you don't belong here, and they need to know that they need to shut up talking. They need to get a real friend or some friend, or you need to start something in your work where you guys talk to each other and go out and actually talk and have friends instead of everything being online. Sorry, I was so soapbox. So social engineering, two definitions. New in the information world, information security context, and it's old in the social sciences. You guys would like to think you invented social engineering, apparently. You didn't. Or some of you, not all. I vent that onto some people. Information security, the art of manipulating people. This is what when we apply it to this, it's the art of manipulating people into performing acts or divulging information that will compromise security. These can be parts of long or short cons. Usually there's short cons. Usually it's a con on you, peace, 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 peace. And let's say you're my person that needs me to get all those pieces. I'll give them all to you. You know what to do with them. I don't. And you put them all together in that puzzle. And they're all pieces of that puzzle that will take down or have a critical piece of infrastructure for that company. Social sciences. Social engineering, how to best manipulate people, has been long studied in social sciences. The application of the tools and their applicability to information security are being studied and used more and more because we see how this is being done now, and so we're trying to see the crossover between what you guys are doing and how it's being used in our studies. This has been around, social engineering's been around, yes, before Kevin Mitnick, and yes, before Chris Hadnagy. You remember the guy, that's social engineering, Wizard of Oz, remember that? That's social engineering. I joked in one class that it's been around since the cavemen. When they figured out that they could sell one rock for the price of 2 rocks, when they figured out they could con you out of, the stick they needed for fire, for a belief, however it was done. Social engineering has been around as long as communication's been around. Like I said. They rely on one thing to work though. The victim doesn't know it's a scam. And this is just a quote I liked. Experience demonstrated that the ignorance of the public regards to the capability of trickery is the principal factor for every deception. If the public only knew a little more about this, then they wouldn't exist.
I was gonna have that they have faith in your sincerity too, that they automatically believe that people are out there to do good instead of actually trying to,
Right.
Do bad basically.
And we have an inherent, most people generally believe that other people are good people. Generally, other people are bad people. We're all bad people. We all lie. 3/4 of communication, when we talk, when we answer questions, we're lying. How are you doing today? Fine. You're lying. How does that look on me? It looks great, honey. It's a lie. Does this make my butt look big? It's a lie. No, honey, your butt looks huge. I mean, just different things. Did you have fun? Yeah. No. Just, did you like this or that? I mean, we lie. If we didn't lie, our social structure would fall apart. Honestly. I mean, could you imagine? But the fact is, we're liars. Some people are better at it than others. But we lie. Big and small things, every day, all day. And like I said, social engineering takes its theories from those rooted in social sciences. So, sorry. And they're vast. You guys, incremental persuasion is the best thing that you can teach your people, because this is what we do the most as social engineers. I get you to do one favor. It doesn't seem like a big one. Then 5 questions down the road, it's a bigger question or a bigger favor, and eventually, it's something big. But by then, I've gained your trust. By then, we have a mutual understanding. Or by then, I've got something that you owe me. You owe me this. You need to have your employees be aware that when someone's asking questions and throwing them in and peppering a conversation with odd questions, there's something wrong. Manipulation of nonverbal cues, advantages of learning communication skills, the awareness of social manipulation, all of those things. Nonverbal goes all the way back to Darwin. So if you want to start learning about that, that's the first place you start. He was the first person to recognize nonverbal communication. These are what they look like. But within that, there's 1,000 more other expressions that are vast and vague. But if you start looking and trying to look at the human face and get an idea, that helps. You learn your coworkers, learn about the people you work with. The only way you can is by talking to them and looking them in the eyes and in the face. People ask all the time, is there a way to know, if I bring her to you, will you know if she's lying? No, because I don't know her. And the reason you can't tell is because you don't know her either, because you never really talked to her face. The only way people can tell, the people that are experts in deception, you have to build a baseline before you could even go to that coin toss on understanding them. Like I said, 93%. Everything. It's hard for me to turn it off when I'm up here. To know that I know some of you are bored, or some of you aren't listening, or some of you don't agree, or some of you think it's lame. I can tell by the way you sit, by the way you move, by the way your head, and I have to shut that off. You have to learn, you need to learn at least some of those skills if you're in any kind of position over people.
What's the best resource to learn basics for that?
I'll answer you after you go, because I gotta speed through real quick. And nonverbal communication can show if you're really listening to somebody or you're really not. And I already talked to you about that, and it's really cool. You can look this up, the facial action coding system. It can actually predict deception at 80% accuracy, but like it's a computer program. It's not something you just go and throw out there on people. Like that's what it does. And My facial expressions are universal. The way you carry yourself, sit, walk, move, the way you put your hands, the way your feet are, the way you posture yourself, all those things have a message in them, whether you want them to or not, whether you intend them to or not. You know why? Because we patterned, mirrored, and behaved ourselves over a certain period of time. That social conformity does that. And our bodies respond to what our mind is thinking, not automatically. They just do it automatically. Let's say you want to go out the door. A lot of times you'll turn your foot toward the door, whether you realize it or not, or you'll shift your body toward the door when you're talking. Or you're nervous and you're trying to hide it. There's certain muscles you'll clench up in your body when you're trying to hide it in your face, but because you're clenching those muscles, it has an involuntary response in your muscles. Is that what you're?
Wouldn't that just point toward that you're referring to beforehand, younger people and the methods they use for communicating, as opposed to, we may have used that they were paying. Wouldn't that just indicate a shift in how we communicate instead of, there's a degradation? I mean, maybe there's a degradation in the system of how we interpret things, and we can no longer interpret things the same way. But maybe it's just a change, like how language is changing.
Well, there's some responses like fear that are going to trigger an emotional response whether you want them to or not. And that's going to show in your body whether you realize it or not. Or lying or things. But as far as communication degradation, it's the ability to show things that, like empathy, to properly control and deal with anger or handle a conflict situation. Does that make sense? It's more how to manage, control, and deal with communication and interpersonal communication or even big communication situations. They just don't know how. And a lot of times they would have learned those things through watching parents do it, or instead they'll type out a rant online and then think that's whatever, or say I'm sorry through a text message. I'm sorry in a text message. Well, what does that get you? You just bypass the whole fact of having to look somebody in the face what you did, and say, I'm sorry. You're not learning to deal with those responses, those emotions, those communications, and you're not learning to communicate properly with other people. I don't know what effect that will have later. That's what we're saying. But it's not good. Can you imagine? No empathy? People with no empathy? No, those are sociopaths. And these things I could send you guys about chronemics. Is the study of time. I can use time to manipulate you. Proxemics, it's me using my distance to manipulate you, whether I want to be close to you or far away from you. A lot of times I'll watch you in a group setting or find out if you have an issue with it, and I'll use that to manipulate a situation with you. Do you like people close to you or far away from you? Do I want to pressure you hard, or do I want to pressure you soft? Haptics, touch, depends on what I'm doing. If I'm trying to do neuro-linguistic programming, then I'll do touch. Or if I just know you don't like people touching you, maybe I'll just touch you constantly. Or if I know you haven't, it just depends. Vocalics, paralinguistics too. That's again, me talking really softly to get your attention because I want you to listen. Or me yelling, if I know you don't like being yelled at, or talking in firm voice, fast voice. I talk really fast because I know it's really urgent and I make you think it's really urgent. You gotta give me this information right now, and it makes me seem more credible if I have something else to go along with it, so I can talk really fast. All those things. Artifacts and olfactics. Olfactics are smell. People are turned on by smells. I can find out what cologne your mom used to wear if she's dead, and that sounds horrible. My mom died when I was 13, so that's why I use that example with not much. But I know her hairspray has an effect on, her old hairspray has an effect on me. Or if you hate really bad foul odor, back you into a corner.
That's why people say take a shower at Defcon.
Yeah. And artifacts are things that you bring along with you. Knife, I guess. I'll go there. Kinesics are your involuntary body movements, or purposeful body movements that you do. Or it's just a study of body movement. And then modern applications, it's just like affect display, emblems, adapters. Sorry, I have to rush. Gestures can be manipulated. You can watch, there's so much presidential tape on fake outrage, and then some slam on the table. If they were really outraged, they would slam their hand on the table when they said this. So, gestures are used to manipulate. And then your personal appearance. It's really hard to get over a first impression with somebody. So, if you want to manipulate a first impression, if you want to have a good, or if you actually truly want to have a good first impression, and you can hate that all you want, but it is the truth. It is what it is. Visual impact is at least as important as verbal impact, especially at first. We all know that. And eye contact. And these are just how to manage. I can tell you that. You need to try to accurately read other people's emotions. And just take practice and talking to them. So I think you're feeling this way. Create a trust, respond in ways to know they care. Pay attention to inconsistency. Look at nonverbal communication signals as a group and trust your instinct. And I'm just going to tell you the answers real quick. So this one was sadness, fear, contempt. Someone shows you contempt, that means really hate you at the time. Anger, joy, surprise, disgust, that means they really hate you. And then just how to avoid being a target. Like I said earlier, just if it's no, then say no. And that's it. And I looked at that. I love that face. I mean, really. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Like I said, there's gonna be a lot of upcoming research done on the topic. It's a huge topic and it's deep, and like when you really love something, it's hard to condense it. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and keep looking at Hadnagy's blog over at Hadnagy stuff over at socialengineering.org, and some new stuff will be there hopefully pretty soon. I appreciate your attention, and I will answer your questions. So thanks.
What was in your thesis you mentioned that you argued for an 8?
8 pain. And it actually showed up just as well as far as A, B, C, D, or E, with 1 being the highest indicator on the scale and 1 being the lowest. It actually showed and proved as tracked as well. People could identify it just as well. It was at its highest, and misidentified it at its lowest. But it's not something you can get into, like to Ekman or something like that, unless I go on to do it as doctoral research. And didn't you have a question that I didn't answer, ma'am? Oh, she's on her phone. See? No.
I was curious about a basic resource for learning the basics of this.
I would go to Ekman.
Ekman Group.
Yeah, Paul Ekman has several good books. There's Darwin, but that's pretty deep, but it's the origin of where they came up with all this from. But I would start with Ekman, and then Burgoon is Judy Burgoon, and her stuff is she's still teaching and still developing. And she's nonverbal, just period, just on nonverbal communication. And she's very good, very easy to understand. And once you just start digging around and looking up either nonverbal communication, for nonverbal communication, there's some really good stuff just out there already. As far as micro expressions, you're going to get some controversy about that, but Ekman's really good. And then Chris Hadnagy's book is pretty good. Chris Hadnagy, I like it. And it gives you, that's on social engineering and practical tips on how to apply social engineering. use of words, like where we've taken words and applied meaning that doesn't go with them. Like, we were doing, and it's kind of controversial, but we were looking at when people say assault, people are automatically thinking assault rifle. Or people were thinking there's been 4 people killed downtown, and people were like, it could be a terrorist. You know, it was just automatically hyper sensitivity. When did this start? Paranoia start? And we're trying to track that back. And a lot of people are like 9/11, and so we're trying to track it further back. But a lot of it was around the 24/7 news cycle when it started, which was about 9/11, and then before that around Columbine, when all that stuff started happening. So there's a theory. It says it's cultivation theory, and it says whatever, it's by George Gerbner, and it says whatever the media tells us repeatedly to believe, then that's what we're going to believe. And and because it gets buried down into our subconscious. I was answering questions. I'm sorry. And so there are some people that are opting out of the system, maybe, but they're really not. What they're doing, instead of that, they're isolating themselves further. They isolate themselves further into a pocket of people that just think like them, and that's something that has never really been offered before until the internet. You know, on the internet, they just tend to circle around other people that believe and think just the same way they do, so they're not challenged by anybody else. And then there's a few that want to go out and find a fight, so they go on every message board that thinks differently like them and post something controversial about Obama or about God or about Republicans or the devil. I don't know, but if you ever see that, I think you can read about it. So it's not that they're really I haven't seen opting out of systems. I see opting out of critical thinking skills. I see opting out of involvement in the system. I see opting out of wanting to try to change anything anymore. And part of that's because we don't teach them how to communicate effectively, even their argument. Try talking to some of these kids. And keep asking them to effectively communicate their argument. Both ways, for and against. Try to make them argue both sides. Can't. That's effective communication skills, going right down toward it.
Let's say even though their interpersonal skills are basically going down the drain, you know, with online environments, would you say that they're being sanctioned as a result of the workplace, and the workplace actually forces them to develop interpersonal skills in relationships?
No. The workplace forces them to go to work in their office or the cubicle. Their workplace forces them to sometimes work in groups where somebody's going to be a leader and the task work and they go off and do their thing. The workplace forces them sometimes to go to training where someone stands in front of them and tells them what to do, and they may play some games. The workplace does not foster a group or a family or a interpersonal atmosphere that teaches them those skills. No. Or I haven't seen one.
It depends on what type of, job.
One more, and then I got to get out of here. They're going to hurt me.
We actually have a Q&A room
Okay.
down by the escalators.
Okay.
You can go down and spend as much time with questions as you want.
All right, you want to come down there? Y'all can come down there, and I'll answer anything you want. Okay? Sorry. What was your question? Okay, I can answer it while I'm doing all this. Thank y'all so much, and I'll be around, and I'll be at DEF CON, and I'll be in the booth at Saturday at 2 o'clock. So if you want to come hear me, try to get somebody on the phone. Lord help me.
The counter there is for showing, I think it's a timestamp from midnight. I think that's what he said it was.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got him to